And the reality is, in North America and even Europe, the cost of capital has gone down dramatically, right? Interest rates are incredibly low, capital is cheap, and it needs to go to good ideas. And unfortunately, in our part of the world, the cost of capital is expensive. As a result, that also impacts risk appetite and betting on new ideas. What you typically find is folks trying to almost keep things the same, or like in trending. So you need something from the outside to shake it up a little. There's a bit of flow through back into the ecosystem. Then these companies are able to reinvest into the ecosystem and money starts to stay local. So once again, with these things, if you take a bit of a long-term view and just sort of not anchor on what's happening right now, but what are some of the possibilities that are capable of happening based on what's happening now, this is when things get exciting.
So then, this year, 2021, are we going to expect some further big acquisitions?
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that we're going to see more transactions. And even if it's not just acquisitions, but just more deal flow, right? And you're already starting to see that. I've never seen this level of deal flow. Almost every other week, a funding round is being announced, and a significant funding round, and from very high quality investors that are really starting to take a good look at the continent now. You'll start seeing these incredible stories starting to flourish in the context of all of this.
Stripe's acquisition of Paystack underscores the increasing attractiveness of the technology sector in Africa. Angel investors who may have been reticent to take the plunge are expected to dive in now. And while the market is still dominated by foreign investors, more homegrown African funds a venture capitalist fund based in Lagos in Nigeria, Africa, and are an early investor at Paystack. She says the acquisition of Paystack is monumental for everyone in Africa's tech industry.
It changes a number of things. First and most importantly, I think that it changes the culture. It certainly has influenced the culture around meritocracy. Because, historically, the way that people make big money on the continent through oil and gas, through, government relations, et cetera, then it's very much a relationship-based or a nepotistic ecosystem, or historically has been. And this shows, the guys were domestically educated, they worked locally, they built businesses locally, and it just goes to show that if you are smart and you dedicate yourself to a craft, you literally can realize a multi hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars in Naira exit. And so I think that first and foremost, to push the idea of meritocracy, of like, dedicate yourself to your craft, learn technical competence, and commit to building something transparently, honestly, with integrity. That's point one. And then the second one is what we've been able to experience as well, is there's just been a radical boom in institutional investor interest, because now that we're finally seeing the full circle. Yes, there's been a 2x in VC dollars since 2016, coming into the ecosystem. Every year there's a 2x growth. We've seen multiple IPOs, we've seen all this, big liquidity events, but these are older businesses, the ones that are, Helios Towers, the InterSwitch 200 million investment from Visa, the Jumia IPO. These are all, older businesses. And to be able to see something as recent as Paystack have a $200+ million exit just goes to show you can get your money out in USD. You can get your dollars out of Africa and back into your pockets with a high multiple. So that's certainly influenced as well.
We've seen a massive increase in investor interest in the fintech scene across Africa over the years. Do you think a big exit like this could boost that interest even further?
Since the acquisition happened, not only are we having an increase in foreign investors coming to approach us, or sovereign entities, but we're also seeing increased African institutional funds, which has never existed before. We were backed by the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority, but this is their appetite for venture capital, for technology. This is new. And, are just now starting to think about actively deploying capital into the technology space on the continent. So yes, I would say that in and of itself. And then separately, fortunately, what we're seeing with technology companies is not exclusively founding members, but, a collective employee base holding shares of the company. Exits do happen. The wealth is distributed across the company base. And so what you're seeing now is the potential for a PayPal mafia of Africa. So collective wealth of all of these people who've realized these material exits, being able to invest in the next generation of founders with that advisory and expertise that they're bringing along with it.
Maya Horgan-Famadou from Ingressive Capital in Lagos, finishing this edition of Business Daily. I'm Tamasin Ford. Our producers today are Vicky Broadbent. For more, please download our Business Daily podcasts. Hello, you're listening to the BBC World Service, and now witness history with me, Lucy Burns. Today we're going back to 1969 and the start of a programme serving free breakfasts to school children in California, which was more controversial than it sounds because it was run by the revolutionary political organisation, the Black Panther Party.
Eggs, toast, bacon, milk, oranges, apples, those little individual boxes of cornflakes. Once a week we'd have pancakes.
This is the Reverend Earl Neal. He's an Episcopal priest. In 1969, he was leading St. Augustine's Church in a deprived area of Oakland, California, and he helped set up their program, providing free breakfast for local children.
The need that was obvious was that there were children who did not have breakfast. They had hunger pangs, poor performance in schools. A lot of them would just buy candy at school and at stores. And we began with 11 youngsters on the first day, which was a Monday. And by Friday, we were serving about 135 students.
But it wasn't just about toast and pancakes. It presented, without question, the greatest threat to internal security in America.
The whole black nation has to be put back on me. And we're going to walk on this nation. We're going to walk on this racist power structure.
I became involved with them through one of our parishioners, Mrs. Ruth Beckford Smith, who taught Afro-Haitian dance in Oakland. And Huey Newton, who was one of the founders of the Black Panther Party, his girlfriend was one of her students. 67 had been arrested for allegedly shooting a police officer. There was an altercation that went down in West Oakland. And I asked Laverne if she thought that Huey would mind if I visited him in his jail cell. And she said no, he wouldn't. And that's how I became involved with the party.
Reverend Earl Neal was already an experienced campaigner for black civil rights. He had helped organise the historic marches from Selma to Montgomery in Alabama in 1965 and helped black people register to vote in Mississippi. But the civil rights movement was facing strong resistance. Peaceful protesters had been attacked by white vigilantes and beaten and tear-gassed by the police, and the change they were demanding was slow to arrive.
The whole mood around black people in the U.S. was changing from just nonviolence to one of self-defense, and that believed that people had the right to defend themselves. Even Dr. King began to move to that position.
The Black Panther Party, originally the Black Panther Party for some with guns in their uniforms of leather jackets and black berets. But they also wanted systemic social change to address the poverty and deprivation endemic in many black areas, like Earl Neal's community in Oakland.
There was a feeling of hopelessness, and especially among the young people. And instead of them being out gangbanging and what have you, many of them joined the party and saw that as a very positive part of their life. They could redirect their energies.
The Black Panther Party set up a number of social programs. They called them survival programs. Health centres, prison visit services, community classes and economics and first aid. Earl Neal invited the party to start holding meetings in the basement of his church.
It was my belief, of course, and still is, that the church is there not only for the benefit of people's souls, but also to deal with community issues and community problems. In Luke chapter 4, starting with verse 11, I don't mean to quote too much scripture on you, Jesus defined his own ministry as dealing with the human condition, that he'd come to bring relief to the captive, recovery of sight to the blind, and to heal those who are oppressed.
And the way Earl Neal and his parishioner Ruth Beckford-Smith decided to start fighting that oppression was with the breakfasts. There was a lot of practical work to be done.
And this included consulting with nutritionists to determine what a healthy breakfast menu should include. My role was to meet with the necessary health and safety codes. We used our tax exempt status of the church to purchase rolls of paper tablecloths, paper plates, paper cups, plastic knives, forks, and spoons.
They got donations from parishioners and local businesses, although not everyone was immediately keen, which meant the Black Panthers' activist tactics had to come into play.
But there was a Safeway store right across the street from us. When we first approached Safeway, they refused. But then the party threw a boycott to boycott milk products, especially because those were products that would spoil easiest. And then finally they did come around.
The free breakfasts for children started in January with pupils from the local elementary school.
The program would start at 6:30 in the morning, when party members would set up everything and begin cooking. And then children would arrive at 7:30, be fed breakfast, and then dismissed by 8:30 so that they could be up to school at 8:45 when school opened. And Panther members also served as crossing guards for the children so that they could cross the street safely to school.
Being a crossing guard, or a lollipop lady as they're known in the UK, was a new departure for the famously tough Black Panthers.
The response was much more alert in the classroom after they had had breakfast, and also changed the image that the party, that the press and media had created of them, of being a bunch of black young men with big naturals wearing black leather jackets. It was a very, very positive program, because who can argue with feeding hungry children?
Over the next couple of years, the free breakfast programme spread to more than 5 Black Panther chapters across the country, feeding more than 20,000 school children. But not everyone was a fan.
The Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, under its leader at that time, J. Edgar Hoover, hated the Black Panther Party and its programs, and did everything that they in their possible to marshal local police forces to destroy and interrupt the functioning of the programs. They would invade the churches or the sites where the breakfast programs were being held, tell lies about the party, fake news, like they were teaching the children to be revolutionaries and to take up arms and to kill policemen. They were saying that the breakfast programs would spread disease and so forth.
Government bodies started to offer breakfast programmes too, maybe unwilling to be outdone by the Black Panthers. And the Black Panther Free Breakfast for Children project started to decline as the whole party began to struggle with internal tensions, adding to the external pressure from the authorities.
So a lot of people just got battle fatigue and just got tired, because it lasted from 1966 till around 72. And Huey and Bobby said, well, let's end this. We've made our point that the community can know that it has power within itself to effect change if we only come together